Good afternoon to all. Welcome to the Agile Network India's panel discussion today. Now I hand it over to our moderator for the day, Danya.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. So, I'm Danya. I'll be the moderator for today's session. I come from a product management background, and I work for Cube Cinema Inc. now, and I come from ThoughtWorks, which is also an agile based company. So we'll go on to the panelists now to have a short introduction about them. First, we have Prabhu Sentamare.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. On the weekend, myself, Prabhu. I am an experienced engineering leader and a people enabler. I've been working in various startups and the corporates for over 1.5 decades. And I live in Chennai with two little angels. And when I'm off, I'm happy to take a roads and for running. And I'm a little bit of in fitness freak.
Thanks, Prabhu. We now have Rajalakshmi Srinivasan, who goes by Raji.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy to be part of this panel. So I'm Rajalakshmi Srinivasan. Just call me Raji. That should do. So I've been with Zoho for the past 21 years now. So I finished BE Computer Science way back in 1999. Yeah, it is long ago, so long ago. Then from then on, I've been associated with Zoho. Zoho was not called Zoho then. It was called by a different name. 3 times we have changed the name of the organization, but I travel along with the company in its journey, in its ups and downs as well. And I started as a software developer, and from then on, I've been working on different products in the organization, and I've done various roles. And now I'm a director of product management for a monitoring product, which is Site 24/7. So that's from my career side. Personally, yeah, I'm mother of three children. So 2 girls and a boy. So my hands are full. Thank you.
Thanks, Raji.
Looking forward to the panel.
Thanks, Raji. We now move on to Sasikala Mahesh, who goes by Shashi.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, Danya, and thanks to ANI for this opportunity to be part of this panel discussion on delegation. I have been in the industry for a couple of decades now. After a career break, I restarted about 10 and a half years ago, and it's been a wonderful journey getting to know a lot of folks in the IT industry and networking with communities like ANI. I am a very I'm very interested in cooking different cuisines. So when I'm not working or when I'm not part of these panel discussions, I'm trying out some new recipes and bringing my daughter up to speed on cooking as well. So that's briefly about me, and looking forward to this panel discussion today.
I already see that you're delegating very well even at home, Shashi. Now,
yes.
Moving on to the next one in the panel, Vijay Raghunathan.
Hey, thanks, Danya. I'm excited to be part of the panel discussion today. So I have around 15 plus years of experience, and my initial phase of the career was into product development, and the next phase of my career was into something I would like to call as corporate innovation. So it is about nurturing the culture of innovation in larger enterprises. So how do you get the culture of a startup into a larger enterprise? That was my second phase of my career. In the third phase, I'm a passionate product manager. So that's how I have come to what I'm today. And I live in Chennai with my wife and son 10 years. So if I'm not at work, you can see me reading Indian philosophy. That's what excites me. Thank you. I'm excited to be part of the panel discussion today. Looking forward.
Thank you all for your introductions. Now let's jump right in to understand what delegation is, right? So delegation is a term that we hear many times in our work life, right? We are, we face the pressure sometimes that we don't delegate or we delegate too much. And this, kind of a question always just pops up in our mind. Well, we all do it at various levels and aspire to be, at a certain level in terms of, how much we want to delegate or how well we want to delegate. There's always this one question that seems to confuse us, right? When it comes to delegation, are we doing it right? what's the right level to be at? Will we be perceived as someone who's delegating too much, which means, are people looking at me as a taskmaster, or someone that's shying away from responsibility and accountability, right? And how do I know that, whatever I delegate or my style of delegation is working fine, or what's the feedback? How do I actually look at what needs to actually change? The tact of getting it right and working at the right level is something that eludes a lot of us, and which is why we chose this topic today to demystify what delegation is all about from our panel's experience on the same. Now, before we start, let's look at what this delegation is all about. Okay? Literally, it's the shifting of authority and responsibility for specific functions. But to some, it could mean getting the work done by others. Now, we can go to our panelists for a quick round to understand what comes to their mind when they think of delegation first and why they think it's important. Vijay, do you want to start first?
Yes, thanks, Danya. I think to start with, delegation, as you said, is the assignment of authority to another person to get a job. And when I think about delegation, the first thing that comes to my mind is this: deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what. So delegation in that sense is more important to be able to focus on your highest priorities. And the priorities based on your role. This is from the delegator's perspective, right? And from the receiver's perspective, it gives an excellent opportunity for growth and development. So as they say, if you delegate tasks, you create followers. And if you delegate authority, you create leaders. So in that sense, I think delegation is a very key leadership skill. Over to you, Danya.
Thanks, Vijay. That was very insightful. Shashi, do you want to add on to anything? Your thought on delegation?
Absolutely, Danya. Absolutely. I think beautifully you started with the definition of delegation itself, and Vijay added on to saying that, how do you have followers for you by delegating, and how do you delegate authority? When I think of delegation, what comes to my mind is similar, but the way I look at it is you grow and enable others to grow. And why is this important, right? When you do delegation, it gives you time to focus on the activities or the areas that you want to build your capabilities in. And if you want to do that, obviously you have to delegate. And as you grow into leadership roles, it becomes very important that you focus on strategic activities and strategic areas, which means you have to really, really delegate. And what does this do to the people who actually become the delegatees or the teams which take the activities from you and start doing? They start becoming or feeling very confident, and they feel that they are very important, which is key to building the next level of leadership, people who feel responsible for more challenging activities. And they also feel the urge to learn more and to work on their skills as they are exposed to more challenges, leading to their own growth. So in a nutshell, for me, delegation is you grow and enable others to grow along the way. That's how I would put it.
Thank you, Shashi. Raji, do you want to share your thoughts on delegation with us?
Yes. So when I hear the word delegation, so what comes to my mind is delegation with trust will lead to empowerment. So let me elaborate on why it is important. Well, actually, Vijay and Shashi has covered it beautifully. So I just want to put it a different way so that the message is clearly conveyed. So I will say it as if you don't delegate and do everything yourself, you become the single point of failure. It might look very exciting to hold all the authority to yourself and wear multiple hats and do multitasking, maybe for an initial period of time. Then, after a period, it will backfire. So, I generally give this as don't multitask. Learn the art of delegation. So I call it as an art, and I should say the delegation starts from home. So as in the introduction, as you were saying, Shashi is doing a good job of delegating, already doing delegation at home. So I often tell this to people. So I know some of my friends who do everything, who want to do everything themselves. From they get up early at 4 in the morning, do all the household work, drop the children in the school, then go to office, do all the work at office, get back, do all the other household work, and go late, possibly 11:30 to sleep. Okay, you are happily doing it, fine, but how long? How long will you be able to do? Your health is important. So I keep telling them, why are you doing this? That's the first thing I ask people. Why are you doing this multitasking? Learn the art of delegation. That is how you will be able to focus on things that are important for you. Sashi put it rightly, saying that there are other priority things which you need to focus on. To give a personal example, I stopped cooking when my first daughter was born. She's 15 now. I do occasionally do cooking, but then my time at home is to be spent with my children. I don't want to go stand in the kitchen and think. That's not my style. Possibly Sashi's. I mean, if she's not at work, she enjoys cooking different cuisine. Fine, but I don't do it as a day-to-day activity. So that is something I cautiously did because I want to prioritize and I want to spend my time with my children. So I say, don't multitask, learn the art of delegation. So that should start from home. And that carries forward to organizations as well. Organizations is to do with teamwork. So it's the organization success and growth depends on teamwork. It's not a marathon that's run by a single person. It is more like a relay race where a team is involved. So like in any relay race, you have to trust and give full control to the other person so that you can win as a team. So if all this have to be done, delegation is very, very important and learn the art of doing it.
Thank you, Raji. Prabhu, do you want to share your thoughts on delegation?
Yep. Thanks, everyone. I think all three has covered beautifully. I mean, when I say delegation, what comes to my mind is it's more of combined growth or shared growth as a team with mutual trust and the continuous learning. So, as John C. Maxwell said, I mean, if you want to do few small things right, do it yourself. If you want to do it great things and make a big impact, then delegate. So as Roger said, man, if you try to do it everything by yourself and you try to delegate everything by yourself, you're going to fail. It's a single point of failure. So that's not teamwork. It's all individual work. So the delegation is very important because that brings out the real teamwork into the table. As a teamwork, it brings out new perspectives and new learnings every day, and also it brings out the shared and combined growth as a team. So that's what I feel teamwork is. I mean, teamwork is important for the success. For teamwork, delegation is important.
Thanks,
Over to you,
Prabhu.
Danya.
Yeah, thank you, Prabhu. So clearly, assignment of authority to another person to get a job done, growing and enabling others to grow. It's almost like saying, live and let others live, right? And empowerment and nurturing the team. And we don't want, superheroes or, one person driving the show. It's always a teamwork that will last longer. Trusting and continuous learning. These are clearly why the panel thinks it's important. And it also gives us an idea of what are all the key aspects that are needed for a delegation to actually work. Now, if we try and do everything that comes our way, either just directly to us or that comes under the function that we represent, I don't think we would be able to get everything done or even do justice to the task that needs to get done. That's why I think delegation is important. Now, while we all understand why it's important, but we also need to acknowledge the fact that this is one of the hardest things to do. Maybe we can take a look at why we think delegation is hard and what are the instances where we've actually found it hard. Raji, do you want to share your thoughts on this first?
Yes, Danya. So we now saw why delegation is important, right? All of us had their our own experiences to share on the importance. We all know it is very important, but at the same time, it is very hard as well. So I'll give few pointers of why I think it is hard, or what are the areas where I feel it is hard to do, or it is challenging. So if I have to say one important thing where it is very challenging is finding the right person with the right skills to whom you want to delegate. We all understand delegation is important. Otherwise, we cannot grow as a team. So delegation is needed. But whom do you delegate? The right person with the right skill set is what is important. And that is a challenging task, I feel. Because the person you want to delegate to, they should understand the technology, They should have the skill set to understand the problem at hand. So judging that becomes difficult. So judging that is a hard thing for many of the delegators, where we believe and we have failed as well. That's based on my personal experience too. So to give you an example, so I work in, I mean, I'm sure all of you here know Zoho, and it's a software as a service, cloud-based software company. There are many other software companies that are cloud-based as well. So when you take any cloud-based product development organization, security is very important, because you have the customer data with yourself. So that being the case, the customers who are going to come and look at your products, they will have a questionnaire to fill. They will have a different, what is it? They have different areas which they wanted to be clarified from the vendor. So that is one task which we had, which we want to delegate, and we found it difficult to find the right person, because it might look simple, but if you see, there are two things, two angles or two sides which the candidate or which the delegator who, I mean, delegatee who accepts the challenge has to look into. On one side, it is about privacy, security. So they have to know the nuances of the security laws, the ISO standards. And when it comes to different geographical regions, it is again different. If your customers are in Europe, you have to know the GDPR laws that are available there. And if yours is a product that is to deal with payment, you have to be PCI compliant. You have to be quality. You have to have quality controls. You have to have information security. There are so many security angles or nuances or clauses which the person has to understand. That is on one side. On the other side, how does the product do with all these things? Where is the data being stored? How is the backup done? Are there backup restoration policies defined? How is the data deletion happening? What is the encryption that is being used? What is the business continuity plan, and how often do we do that? So these are some things which the person should understand. So they have to understand both the product perspective as well as the standards perspective to fill in a questionnaire. It might look simple, but these are the skill sets that the person should develop. So it was a real challenge for us. We wanted to delegate because we were getting more customers, and we it's not one person cannot be doing that. But when I was sitting with my management and deciding whom we can delegate this, it was really a challenge to find the right person with the right skill set. So that is one thing that I feel is very hard when it comes to delegation.
Thank you, Raji. Prabhu, do you want to share your thoughts on why it has been hard for you, or why you think it's hard for some people?
Yeah, sure, Danya. And thanks a lot, Raj. I mean, for the wonderful explanation. When I listen to your thing, I mean, I recollect one of the Tirukkural. இதனை இதனால் இவன் முடிக்கும் என்றாய்ந்து அதனை அவன் கண் விடல். It obviously, I mean, it's very difficult to find the right person to delegate. And in continuation to that, I mean, most of the time we think delegation, we try to delegate for the quick wins. So like doing entire trading. So it's always hit or miss. So delegation for me, it's actually long-term investment and in a continuous process that requires a clear mindset. Most of the time we delegate to the people. I mean, as Roger said, finding a right people, finding a right person is not in a, you can see that today don't have time, so I just want to get this done. You can't do it that way. So you need to think ahead and be prepared so that you can delegate the right thing to the right people and the right way so that you can get the right outcome. So delegation is hard because you need to have a clear mindset and you have to understand that it's not in a quick wins, it's a long-term investment and it needs a lot of preparation. And to summarize it, most of the time we see delegation as a tactical moves. No, delegation, if you want to do that's in strategic or vision, you should build around the delegation with the team as an overall process. Only then it will be easier. We see it as a tactical move.
I think Prabhu's voice was breaking a little bit in the middle. I think what he was trying to say was it's not for a tactical win, it's for the long haul, and it's also an investment that we actually need to make. Now, moving on to Vijay. Vijay, do you want to share your thoughts on why you think delegation is hard?
Yeah, thanks, Danya. Okay, so first, +1 for Raji and Prabhu. Absolutely. Yes, it is difficult if you're not able to identify the right person for the job. Or if you don't have clarity on the problem to solve, as Raji said. Or again, It's difficult if you don't realize it's more of an investment for a long-term return than a quick savings. Absolutely well put by Prabhu. Or if you don't realize it's more about empowering teams than just getting the work done. In addition to this, another factor that I personally believe contributes to making delegation hard is fear of becoming irrelevant. Assume you have effectively delegated the job, identified the right team, shared clarity on purpose, invested enough time and effort into the team, given them sufficient team to gain speed and quality, and you've also empowered them enough. What happens? They start running on their own. They don't have a need to come back to you. This means actually that you have succeeded. However, psychologically, it's a human tendency to feel that you're valued only when people come to you for help or asking questions. And when they don't, questions start popping in your mind. There is some confusion. And so instead of relishing, there is this fear of being irrelevant. Am I becoming irrelevant? I think that feeling makes it hard, according to me. Now you may ask, is the fear rational? Of course, to fear is human, especially when you probably think you're not needed. However, not so when you have the growth mindset. Think of the billion-dollar question, right? I always used to think this. And many people have a different perspective around the same question. Will artificial intelligence make humans irrelevant? The answer lies from the perspective we see that. With a plain perspective, of course, it does throw people out of the jobs. There is no second thought about it. But looking from a growth mindset, it only helps humans focus on higher value jobs that only they can do. Similarly, think of the current product trend. Product is the experience itself. I mean, earlier it used to be a part of the overall experience, but think of any product today, it's the experience in itself. In this model, the traditional sales force become irrelevant. They don't have a need to go about selling this product to anybody. But from a growth mindset, it gives an opportunity for the sales team to focus on higher value outcomes of customer success or upselling or cross-selling, etc. But having said that, fear is usually emotional and rational. And hence, I believe fear of becoming irrelevant is one of the things that makes delegation hard, if that makes sense.
Very beautifully put, Vijay. I think all three of you have shared, information from the delegator's perspective of why it actually makes it hard. I just want to add on to one perspective from the delegatee's perspective as well, right? To this, uh, recently had a situation where we worked on a high-stake company initiative, right, where we needed to work across multiple functions wherein including procurement, product, operations, business, and the management team as well. And there were too many moving parts, and it's a huge risk, for the company itself. And we needed someone to coordinate and keep track of everything. But all of us already had our hands full, given the lockdown and the product changes that actually came with it. So we identified someone who is fairly junior in our team and asked him if he would like to take up the job. While he wanted to, because it will be a good learning experience, we could also see that he was a little worried about whether he'll be able to do it because he's not done it once, especially given the number of new functions he has to deal with and the high stake involved for the company. But once we, alleviated his doubts about the support that he would get, and that we are ready to actually help him out, he was very comfortable just stepping out of the comfort zone and learning whatever is needed to actually get the job done. So I think from a delegator's perspective, the initial fear of, will I be able to do it? I think is also a question that usually prevents people from, accepting something that's delegated to them. Yeah, so that's something that I just wanted to add. Now, moving on from here, is there something that given that it's already looks really hard, right? Coming more from the fear aspect, and if you actually look at it, like what Vijay said, it's more the I think the emotional or the psychological factor that plays in a lot that makes it actually hard, right? Or if you actually look at it objectively, and if you have to put it in someone else's shoes, it probably will just become a lot more easier. So have you seen any smells when we actually look at delegation that we need to stay away from, or just be cautious of when we actually try and delegate? Prabhu, do you want to share your views on this?
Sure, Danya. Yeah. So if you want to the smells, what I see is at least I want to highlight 3 points. One is the trust, because when I say delegate, I mean it's not about just getting things done. It's a process. So if you don't have a trust on the person whom you want to give it, and you cannot give enough confidence to him, don't delegate. As you also said that if a person who is not confident to take it up, so I mean you have to give the trust to him, and you have to build a trust with the person. Only then you can delegate. If you could not support him, you could not build a trust in him, then you don't delegate in that case. That's the one. The second point I want to highlight the smell is if you are very have a strong desire on how it has to be done, the how portion is, and you are very uncomfortable losing control, then don't delegate. Because if when you try to delegate, when you delegate, basically what is you're going to focus, how it's going to be dealt and handled by the person who's doing the real work. And in the process you might lose some of the details, and you have to learn to lose some of the details if you don't want to do. And if you have strong desire and how, and you're very uncomfortable on losing some control, don't avoid the delegation. The third one is lack of communication. That most of the time when you want to when you delegate, people say that okay, just get this done, but most of the time we don't give why it has to be done, why we wanted this, the rationale behind and the intent behind that. If you could not share, if you could not communicate enough detail to the person who you are delegating, don't delegate. So these are the smells I see: trust, strong desire and how, and if you have lack of communication, delegation is going to be hard.
Very nicely put, Prabhu. So, if I were to summarize or understand the meaning of the 3 points, trust and don't control how it is done, or just communicate the intent. It's also giving a meaning to the receiver as to why they are doing the job, why it is actually getting delegated, right? Once the purpose is known, it I think this becomes a lot more easier, for both the delegator and the delegate. Very nicely put, Prabhu. Raji, do you want to add on your thoughts or point of view on this?
Yes, Danya. So thank you, Prabhu. I the trust factor. I just want to give it as two sides to it. Okay. So before even I get into the smells, so I just want to clarify things as see these smells to avoid comes through the experiences, right? So we have all faced these in our 10 year, 20 year, 23 years career. We have done all these delegation, and we have burnt our fingers to find out that this works, this is not working, and we pass it on to the other generation to take it forward. So that is the way we should see. So when we discuss the smells, so that people will be cautiously avoiding those, and they can do more delegation. So that's the idea of behind the discussing the smells itself. And I have three things to say just to add on to, or addition to what Prabhu has stated, and give more pointers as to why it has to be, why these things have to be avoided. So with respect to trust, actually there are two sides to it. One is when you delegate it to someone, the delegator, I keep confusing these words. The person who gets the task, so they have the tendency to come to the delegator often. And because we all talked about that fear also, they have the tendency to come and say, is this right? Every day they will keep coming and checking. So is it right? Is it the right thing that I'm doing? So the delegator will automatically or subconsciously get in there and try to control things, saying, oh okay, no, this is right, this is wrong, do it the other way. So that is something from the delegatee side that has to be avoided. Once you are given a task, make sure you own it and you do it. So that is from the delegatee side that they have to. That's when you get the confidence and you get the credibility. You are given that opportunities don't come. When it comes, grab it. That's the way that you can prove it. So that's from the delegatee side. For the delegator, as far as the delegator is concerned, the smells to avoid is don't do micromanagement. As I will, that's an addition to what Prabhu has said. So you don't go and see how it is being done every day. So we all know this Batman and Robin, right? Every Batman had a Robin to do the work, but the Batman did not take the wings and fly and see how Robin was doing things. Every person will have their own way of doing things. Their working style will be different. Once you set the goals and you give you expect a deliverable, you delegate the job, leave it to them to execute. So one of them may want to do it as every day they would want to have a stand-in meeting and find out how things are progressing. That could be another person who has a different style and they would want to track it in a project management tool. There are so many project management tools available. So they want to they want the updates to come in the project management tool and track it in that way. It is left to the individual. So your style might be different. So every individual is different. So is every individual style of working. You don't get into their shoes to say this you have to do this you have to do this. Don't do micromanagement. So the trust factor, I'm giving a different word for it. The smell to avoid, no micromanagement. That's the first point. The second point is when you allow them to do, allow them to experiment. It is okay if they fail. After all, agile is fail fast, correct things, and improve. That's what is agile that we all know, and we are all trying to do that in our work. That being the case, you just, as Prabhu put it rightly, you just tell them what to do, don't tell them how to do. Don't have a control on how to do things. If I have to give you an example, in any product, I'm again giving only examples from SaaS products. I think people understand. So any product, you have a web page and you want to bring or improve the performance, bring down the response time. So it will boil down to seeing what is the query being done. We all understand the database, we do queries, and a query is taking more time. The slow queries have to be improved. So if that is the task, slow queries have to be improved is the task, give that as a task. That is what to be done. Don't go and say how to do that. They might have a different style of doing it. They might come up with a new idea of doing it itself. Possibly they would want to introduce a caching framework. They would want to introduce newer technologies, because remember, the children, I generally call them children, sorry, the next generation employees or the next generation children are all smart enough. We should accept that. So if they are able to come up with a newer technology and give new ideas, we can use this caching framework, we can use this technology, the ultimate goal is done, accept that. So give them that experimentation. That's when they will have a feeling of ownership. That's where creative work is being done. You exactly tell them what to do, it will be boring at the end of the day. It is monotonous. Somebody else can, I mean, a machine can do this. Why should I sit here and do? What is the human value in that? So make it interesting, remove the boredom from that. That's how creative work is done. So allow them to experiment, give them that freedom. So that is something we should, if you're not doing, you should avoid. If I'm talking it in terms of smells. Third thing is be open to learning. As I said, every day, I mean, you must be open to learn from your subordinates. I learn from my child. Every day he teaches me. When I make a mistake, when I have a pronunciation mistake, I'll be scolding him. He'll stop and he'll say, "Your pronunciation is wrong." I'll only laugh at the end of it. Okay, you learn from them. Similarly, you learn from your subordinates without any ego. Don't bring in ego into the picture. So that is something to be avoided. That is how you can learn, and you will also grow together as an organization. You will grow, your organization grows, everybody around also grows. So learn, be open to learn. The mindedness is important, because a lot of us, as we grow, we get to that rigid feeling of no, I have told this, I cannot change it. Even though I'm wrong, I cannot change it. That's a wrong mindset. You just have to remove that. The earlier you remove, the better person you become. So the smells to avoid in delegation, if I have to put it in a crux: do not do micromanagement, allow enough room for experimentation, and be open to learn without any ego.
Very, very nicely put, Raji. Especially the point where learning from the delegatee itself, right? Because we've done the job so many times that we would have a certain way. Maybe we lack a fresh perspective. When a new person actually looks at it, there's a new perspective, and the next generation obviously has a better tools to actually look at it themselves, right? So when they come up with it, it's a very good insight for us to learn from as well. Right? Sashi, do you want to add your thoughts on this question?
Definitely, Danya. I'm so immersed into the discussion. I was just, I had to pull myself to looking at, oh, okay, I have to speak now. Um, I think it's beautifully coming together that what are the smells that we have to keep in mind while we are intentional about delegation, right? And I'm going to actually bring the light or focus on the intent itself. In my experience, more times I have seen that when people are very eager to pick up a new opportunity, then it becomes a question of with what intent is this person really trying to delegate, right? And it is nothing wrong. There is nothing wrong or right, but what is the intent with which I am bringing up the topic of delegation, because of which whether I'm going to make it successful or not, right? And like I mentioned, in my experience, I see that whenever there is a new opportunity, the individual who wants to delegate sees that if I get into that new opportunity, I can really grow. It's going to be challenging for me. I may have to pick up skills, or I may be put in the spotlight. I may get the exposure I want to, either with the client or with internal senior management. Now I'm going to delegate. First thing is like, oh wow, good. This person is willing to come and do this. He or she is willing to delegate it. But then the person they pick, they completely forget to check whether they are interested, whether that is the passionate area for them, whether they want to be doing what in this case the delegator was doing earlier. The skills is one thing. It could be a stretch skill the individual can pick up. But then, for example, if this is a tech leadership that we are talking about, a person being a tech lead wants to move on to a new opportunity, probably in the data world. It is to go and understand the requirements from a client, and it's going to be directly in the exposure of various stakeholders from the client. I'm going to understand all of the concepts from data side. Now, I've been doing this tech leadership on a Java-based tech stack, for example, let's say. And then I'm going to pick the immediate senior person in my team who I assume that can come and pick up the responsibility. While I have totally ignored or I'm ignorant of the fact that this person is a hardcore techie who doesn't want to be doing the leadership. I would rather be designing, architecting everything, but I don't want to be the talker. I don't want to be in the social angle of the tech leadership. Let me put it that way, right? I would rather be doing the solution as because that suits my personality probably. So here, the intent with which the person who wants to delegate is not coming out clearly, because it is more towards being selfish. I want to move on to something and hence I want to delegate. But in order to make it successful, I'm missing out to identify the right person. It is all, what's in it for me. That's what is standing out. So this is a smell I would suggest that we should keep an eye for, because as we scale and grow in our organizations, right, we want to provide opportunities to a lot more folks. And we suddenly feel that somebody is jumping in and saying they want to pick up something new. And at the same time, they shouldn't miss the fact that whatever they were doing cannot be just dropped. So the intent is something that I would suggest that keep an eye on. That could more often be a smell that delegation may be really hard and it may not succeed. Right? That's what I want to call out here.
Again, nicely put. Yeah, again, nicely put, Shashi. So by intent, it should really work for both the parties, right? The delegator as well as the delegatee. And in a sense, if I have to tie it back to what Prabhu said earlier, for the long run, it should work for the organization as well, right? So that everybody is motivated and the work is also getting done. Now that we've actually looked at the smells of, what a bad delegation looks like, can we actually go ahead and talk about how do you think someone can delegate effectively? Have you seen examples of those, or what in your views are effective techniques for delegation? Vijay, do you want to go on first with this?
Yes, thanks, Danya. So before moving into this topic, I think plus one, because the thoughts that's coming from the panel are very much alignment, and I cannot agree more. So plus one to the folks that talked about vision, clarity of vision, and especially autonomy, right? Everybody is talking about that during the last round of typical delegation smells to look out for. So I remember this incident when I heard the panel, so I just thought I would share here. So I have a son, so he's 10 years and very energetic. And some few years before, he wanted to learn to ride a bicycle. Everybody gets that interest at that point in time, and he wanted to learn because he saw some friends riding in the apartment and he got excited. And every day at some point in the evening, he goes and then sees this. Okay, then we planned. Next 1 week, what we will do, we will get up early in the morning. And since this is something that he wanted to do, he made sure that he got up early in the morning. Go down and practice every day. In the first few days, he was hesitant. had fears and uncertainty, right? Because it's new. He's not done that earlier. He said, Appa, just be around and hold the cycle very tight. Okay, don't leave. All instructions given. But just after a few days, when he started to learn a bit, he did exactly the opposite, right? He started checking if I'm touching the cycle or him. If he sees that I did, he took his one hand off the cycle. By the way, he's just learning that, but he still managed to took his one hand off the cycle and pushed my hand away. He wanted to do it on his own, or rather, he wanted to see for himself that he's on his own. And that is creative confidence, right? Ensuring that we give that freedom is equally very important. If a 7-year-old boy expects that, my son expects that, we can realize how important it is to a bunch of talented individuals. So when Raji said children, these are talented individuals, right? And with all their education and with all their excitement and energy and passion, they have come to the workforce and they wanted to deliver something. So there is joy in figuring things yourself out. There is a sense of accomplishment when you get it done. And this intellectual confidence is very important for growth, and that comes from autonomy. So absolutely +1 on the autonomy. So moving on, what else can we do to delegate effectively? So assume you have identified the right person, or the team, or the job at hand, the right skill set, and you have also shared the vision and given the autonomy. So the intent is very clear. You want to delegate, you're ready to invest your time and effort, and you want them to absolutely succeed. Where should you invest? Do you want to invest in improving the quality, or should you invest to gain the speed? I think it's ignorant to believe that you will have the same speed and same quality, at least to start with. You've delegated, fresh team, fresh task. So I would rather set expectations for a compromise in quality and speed initially. And that mindset, according to me, is very important. I believe speed and quality will all come as a byproduct over a period of time. That naturally comes. Now, hence, I think we should start investing in nurturing what I call as critical thinking. And I also read this in one of the HBR articles as well. The skill that made you succeed in the first place with the job. That's critical. So what is critical thinking? It is the ability to understand the different nuances of the job. It's the ability to navigate the different uncertainties that the job might throw as you move forward. And most importantly, it is the ability to make an informed decision during any situation, given the data points you have at hand. I learned from a lot of workshops and design thinking. I'm a design thinking enthusiast, so I've been part of many design thinking workshops. And how do you develop critical thinking in the team is by asking the right questions. And they say that the quality of critical thinking will be directly proportional to the quality of the questions you ask. Here is an example. I wanted to put that in practice as well, right? So I work at Trimble. We build a lot of hardware and software products for different phases of a construction project. That's what we do. So we recently launched a software product on the market. So the sales, marketing was in place, the customer success support was in place. However, soon after the launch, there was a lot of user field issues from the customers coming initially. I had to be, being the product management phase, I had to be the face of it for many of them. Since there were more application issues that the generic, you still have a global support team, but they are very generic in nature that they are not equipped to handle. And it's a recently launched product. So it became overwhelming in a few weeks. I was not able to handle all myself. So it was clear that I had to delegate to a couple of my team members. But I had my own concerns. Support, especially in this phase, is very, very critical. The customer experience with every single support ticket is very important for the overall product sentiment. I have just launched a product. So I was very concerned about that. So as they are on the job, I decided to invest in nurturing the critical thinking. Now, let's get into the first rule of support. I got into the first rule of support. Response is more critical than resolution. It's a basic philosophy of support. So I started asking the question. So what is response? What is resolution? Why do you think response is more important than resolution? Very basic questions. Looks when people realize this and actually put it in practice and think about these guys are 3 years into the industry, 2 years into the industry, 4 years into the industry. They're very technically very great, but handling customers and their emotions, it's new. So these are not basic questions, but very deep questions according to me. So the next important thing, empathizing with the customer and acknowledging that there is an issue and giving the best possible solution for the customers to get ahead with the job. This is very important, right? So people generally tend to say that, okay, the product is working fine. This is how it was designed. So there is no issue here. No, that's not the case. So it's important. And again, the questions here are, what is our goal here? Is it responding to the ticket and closing it? Or Is it about claiming that the product is great or working as expected? Because that's a natural tendency, especially for new people, right? Or is it helping the customer to get ahead with the job at hand? So this started making them think. And I believed that in the right direction. And the third example, communicating on how the issue is progressing is very important. Now the questions are, what would you do when the issue is taking time to resolve? What would you do when you are absolutely clueless about the issue, leave alone resolving it, and so on? So the questions continue, right? So I did this at every possible avenue with real situations at hand where actually an issue is taking a little longer time than getting resolved, or the team is not ready to acknowledge that there is an issue, but the customer is crying out there for help, right? So these are instances, real instances. So in addition, I also started asking them to recollect the last few personal support experiences they have had and reflect on why it either turned out good or bad. And all these actually started working then. The moment they started realizing that all I do is to try to get the possible solution, best possible solution, keeping customers' interest at the center, they were able to make the right judgment and communication. So they worked towards improving the product on one hand and based on the feedback and managing the support experience as they occurred as well. So I think from this example, so to wrap up, I believe as you delegate, investing in nurturing the critical thinking in the team by asking the right questions at all real life situations.
Very, very nicely put again, Vijay. And also another level of comfort your points actually gave me is that some of these issues are not, we're not alone, right, in dealing with it in a product. So even I am a product manager, and some of these things that you're talking about are something that we deal with on a day-to-day basis whenever we roll out a new product as well. So it's good to know that most products face similar issues. Raji,
We're
do you
all
want to add?
together in this.
Yeah. Raji, do you want to add your thoughts on what you think an effective delegation technique would be?
Yes, Danya. So thank you, Vijay. So that is actually clearly thought out. I think he spoke for all of us. So I think all of us agree that the effective delegation, he has covered all the points that has to be taken care, and that's what we also practice in our day-to-day lives. I'll just see where I can add on to few points from different examples so that those are even more stronger. So for a effective delegation, so Vijay covered it clearly that you have to set the goals clearly and measure it correctly, the clarity of goals. So I just put it in a different way as remove any ambiguity. So that's what is meant by clarity as well. But let me, since Vijay spoke about customer support experience and how his team handled it for a new product launch they had, I wanted to give an example from another domain, possibly marketing. So, marketing is one area where the clarity in goal setting or removing ambiguity is little bit difficult or little bit tough. So, when you have to do delegation, effective delegation there, make sure you are very clear and don't give any high level or ambiguous goals. To give you an example, I think all of us have this thing when you have a web page for your business, you want that to come in the first page of any search engine because that is one of the marketing techniques that people use. Go search for your website has to come in the top. It is a general tendency, or it will generally some in this. These are some areas where we tend to say that I don't know how you will do, but get it done. But that's full of ambiguity. You don't have the clarity how to expect the delegatee to take ownership and do things, even though the goal is set that your page has to come in the first page of a search engine or the ranking has to be improved. But if you don't know, or if you say that I don't know how you do, then that is the ambiguity over there. Instead, you can take up pointers, you can take up measures, possibly for this keywords, for these set of keywords, where do we rank versus where is the competition ranking. Every business has competition, so that's how we are competing and trying to come up in the search and capture customers. So give that clarity there as to the KPIs have to be defined clearly. You give them, if your page is ranking in the 25th position, say them improve it by 2 positions, bring it to 23 or get it below 20. Let that be the first goal and give search for keywords. See you can search for that, and you can look at various places. You can look for the position in the search engine, search console, and in the browser. So you should also know such techniques before you give the marketing people as to just do this blindly. So that has to be said. And see, measure it in small amounts. Don't give them the ambiguity there, and they will also not be able to achieve it. They will also be not be happy. You will also not feel happy. So that has to be removed. So, and that is what is the main thing. So remove ambiguity and set goals clearly is very important. Vijay has covered it from support perspective. I just covered from marketing angle. And the other important thing is to add on to Vijay's comment on effective communication. So effective delegation comes with effective communication. Effective communication is important. Any work that we have, whatever time, how much ever we plan and set timelines and deadlines for our products or projects, there is going to be delay. So it is important to communicate that. So wherever there is a delay, wherever you see a delay, inform prior hand, make it transparent. So being transparent with your customers enables the trust. That's what is needed at the end of the day for any business. The trust that customer has on the business goes a long way than any other promotional ads that you do. So losing customers' trust, that's an intangible measure, I call it. You cannot measure it with any numbers, but the bad, once it is bad, it is very difficult to get them back. So be transparent with customers. Tell them this is going wrong. Tell them that it's going to be delayed. That is how they will also know that, okay, there is a human being who is working on these things. It's not, I'm not left unknown as to what is happening. So effective communication is important, both with customers as well as with the delegating. See, you are trusted, and your delegator, your manager has given you some work. You know it is going to take time. You don't inform your manager towards the end, because he has to inform, he has to deal with so many other different things. So if you see there is going to be a delay of a week, tell them 1 week in advance. Don't wait for the last minute. That's going to last minute, avoid last minute surprises. So that's what I call it as lead more than you lag. If there is going to be a lag of 1 week, you tell them 1 week in advance that there's going to be a lag. And that goes a long way. That's a very important measure for effective communication. And effective communication goes a long way in effective delegation. So I think that's from my side to add to Vijay's points.
Again, very, very nicely put and explained, Raji. Like remove ambiguity, and even when you set goals, clearly make it specific goals, right? In terms of keep it at the second point, increase by 2 points as opposed to just saying increase, right? Because what does an increase mean to you or me could actually be very, very different things, right? So that's actually very, very nicely put. Shashi, do you want to add?
All this have to be done keeping the customer in mind. Again, Vijay covered it.
Yes, yeah. Shashi, do you want to share your thoughts on what an effective delegation is?
Absolutely, Danya. I'm going to bring in a different perspective, though. I'm going to look at it from the personal perspective. Um, how can we effectively delegate? And like Prabhu said earlier, uh, how what I'm going to talk about now is also going to bring in the new perspective, either it be from the new generation or from a totally different stakeholder. So when we are delegating, I totally agree with Vijay and with Raji on bringing in the clarity on the goals and being not ambiguous about what we. If we do that, it also gives the delegatee a skepticism or a question. It brings an apprehension about, okay, I'm not clear what they're expecting me to do. It's quite ambiguous. Do they really want me to be successful or not? I totally agree with that, bringing in the clarity and breaking it down so that both the parties agree and understand what is the outcome that is expected. While we do that, I would like to put it this way. Talk about which activity we are delegating and when do we want the outcome to be, while we make it very clear what is the outcome that we are. And like earlier Raji mentioned and Prabhu also spoke about, right? And during this journey, we don't want to be micromanaging either. So building a safety net for the delegate to play is very, very important here, which means you talk about what task are you delegating, what is the outcome, when do you need the outcome. Let the delegate think about it, come up with his or her own plan, and also call out where he or she may face some challenges, and how and when would they like to call out for help, and what would they expect you to do when they call out for help. In this context, I would like to bring in a personal example. And like I mentioned earlier, I like to try new cuisines, making it at home when I'm free. And my daughter joins me, and she's a big fan of making Italian dishes. And one day she decides that she wants to make some delicacy from the Italian cuisine. And I'm sure she's very detailed. She took the recipes, she showed it to me, she took tips from a couple of other recipes, and I'm looking here, okay, she wants to make something new. And there are going to be people from the family who want to eat at a particular time. Is she going to be able to make it? It has to be, I don't want to say edible, but it has to be of good quality. And I want to nurture her interest to cook something new. But I know there are certain steps that she's going to probably find. And she has already deployed her younger brother to be her assistant and helper. And she had showed me everything. She asked me to help her with everything. So I'm bringing all the vessels and everything that she needs, accessories. And now here I am, very nervous. I asked her, okay, how are you going to do it? What sequence? When do you think something, you may need help from me? I know you have your brother to help. So I had to kind of get a sense of all this. I made her think, helped her think. This is how I'm going to do it. I have about an hour and a half. And I think by this time, if I'm still struggling, I may need your help. And she said, you know what? I know you will keep jumping on me asking whether this is okay, that is okay. Do you want me to help? Don't do that. I just have to be in the same vicinity, just keeping an eye and watching her body language in this case. If her tone goes up and she's trying to boss around her brother a little more, then I know she's stressed. But I had totally trusted her, talked through this, had to give her the autonomy and the ownership of like, okay, I'm so excited that you're going to do this. I am eager to taste something new, which I have not tried before. And, I'm really feeling proud that you are courageous to try this. So that all boosts their positivity. While you do that, you have this apprehension or a little bit of nervousness in your head that, oh, what if this goes wrong? But you can't go and micromanage, right? So bring that safety net, build that safety net. In this case, I could already plan, I could always have a plan B of ordering something or making something, but didn't have to do that. At the end, it all turned out to be good. But at the same thing, the same thing if you apply on the work front as well, talking through this, talking through these steps and encouraging them. And like we spoke about earlier, asking for their perspective. We might have done it in one way. We don't have to go and throw that out in the open and say, hey, you know what, this is how I always done. Do you want to do it this way? Rather than that, ask them, this is what we expect to be the outcome. This is when we expect it to be there. How do you want to approach it? What's your way of doing it? And during this thought process, if you want to listen to me or if you want to hear from me how I have done it in the past, I'm happy to share. But we would like to hear from you how you want to approach this. That sort of builds that, it shows that you trust them, you have confidence in them, and you want them to own it. So that is how I would say that you can make it effectively, combining with bringing in the clarity and defining the KPIs like what Raji and Vijay were talking about earlier. So that's my view on this, Danya, how to make delegation work.
Very, very nice personal experience shared, Shashi. So resisting the urge, for backseat driving. That's really what came to my mind when you, spoke about, I could have jumped in to actually, fix it or, make sure everything is all right. But staying away when especially, how to do it, and there's a time urgency in everything. I think that's a skill that we all need to really pick up, right? Because as long as there's no pressure, everything will actually work fine. But in real life, it's never the case, right? There's always time pressure that we're all running against. So very, very nice inputs. So those were the questions that we had for the panel. But I also see that there are some questions posted in the chat. So we can move on to that question to start with. The first question is, I think the first two are related. How does a small size company deal with delegation? I think primarily it comes from, one of the statements we made in the panel about delegation and skills being correlated. Vijay, do you want to take a shot at this question?
Yes, Tanya, I think it's an interesting question. So let's think of a early stage startup. So you have a founder and a bunch of co-founders and probably a few friends, and that's about it. And so usually people will be from a product mindset as a founder, and you will also have a co-founder that's traditionally a technologist or a couple of technologists. So it's unlikely, for example, that you have a finance guy or an experienced design or operation. So this is not to be found. Of course, initially value proposition is more important so that you know that there is something to grow for there in the product. So unless that comes, these are not important. But assume that you have these people, and within the time frame, what you do in case if you have something to do with finance, you will start sharing your responsibilities, right? In the sense, so the closest inclination towards finance probably is with the product. Okay, product guy, can you go ahead and then think about what aspects of KPIs and what aspect of finance that you want to track, right? There's no finance guy here. So somebody has to wear that hat. So I believe to start with, it's going to be a sharing of responsibilities based on your interest. And since you are not an expert in that, it's important that you bounce off ideas and then review with a team of only 5 people that you have. Okay, so the sharing of responsibilities will solve in that way. Now you're growing, slowly growing, and looks like the pain of somebody not working for finance or something specific. It's out there. Then, but it's still not growing enough that you can probably recruit somebody. Then probably, I think, getting a consultant, an outside consultant, and then pay only for the work that you give is another way of actually getting the expertise, right? And over a period of time, you start seeing the product and the entire team of people start seeing that this product is here to stay and it's now growing, right? So, and you can see that from the cube of the pains, whatever that we're talking will be amplified. And by that, you get a sense that now we need a proper people. So that's why I would like to call that as just-in-time delegation. Now it's a time for delegation. Now, as you grow, what you do is we will now start recruiting a specific person, maybe a head for finance. And even at that time, you will not even know what you want to ask because you are CEOs and a couple of founders. You're not finance guys, but you still have to recruit the right person with the right mindset and ask about his experience about running a finance team and how he intends to run this kind of a small team here. So at that point in time, when you're seeing that it's actually growing, what I would like to term as just-in-time delegation, you recruit the right person with the right skill set, and then probably share the entire responsibility and ownership of the finance to him. So that's how I see. So when this team is small, you eventually have to share the responsibilities. You cannot have an independent person coming to you. If the pain is becoming a little larger, then you might want to invest in probably a consultancy. And if the pain is amplified and it's the right time, then you have a just-in-time delegation and you bring in the right finance head.
Thank you, Vijay. So the next question we have from the audience is, I'm keen to understand the pull versus push concept in autonomy and delegation. Prabhu, do you want to take this question?
Yeah, sure, Daniel. I think the pull, wish, push, and autonomy and delegation. I think that's kind of tells about it. I mean, as also we discussed in the earlier. I mean, if you want to push the task to the your subordinates or your team, your colleagues, then it's more of a you have to push it with authority, and you push it with authority and with a lot of detail. That brings the autonomy in the team. So that there's no task master or kind of things actually. So there's nothing called pull or push. So you have to bring the autonomy, trust, and the clarity and the transparency in the team about what's in there actually. Once that is done, you can't differentiate. It's a push or pull basically. I mean, if my time in Trimble, I mean, uh, there are a lot of initiative, lot of tasks we do. I mean, initially you'd feel that I was trying to talk about some of the tasks to my team, and then it started picking up. If you see over the time, the culture has been built and the transparency has been brought in the team, and everybody is eager and know why they're doing it, and the purpose, intent of it. There are many instances. Okay, people come and ask me, I mean, that can I take it? Can we look into it? And then there are some people come to me and said, instead of me, can that person do it? So they kind of delegate themselves actually. I mean, it's not me delegating to my team. My team try to delegate themselves among them. That for that, from the leaders, you should start giving a lot of knowledge, trust with the team, and bring that culture and enable them to learn, support them, and as Vijay was saying this one example, not necessarily have to do it all the time push. Maybe you have to start push a little bit. Once they start trying to take it, then stay away. Then they'll start pulling from you basically.
Yeah, very nicely put, Prabhu. I hope this answered the question. The next one is, What KPIs are to be taken into consideration while looking at the delegation angle? Raji, do you want to take this one, please?
Yes, I think we talked about it throughout the panel, but let me reiterate on what are the key performance indicators. How do I measure is my delegation working fine? So that's the, if that is the intent of the question. So I would say, though we give the autonomy, the authority, and delegate it to them, but still the progress has to be measured once in a while. You just cannot delegate and leave it as it is. So because at the end of the day, the task has to be completed. We have to deliver it to customers. If we have a task that has to be delivered to the customer, if it is a 6 months time period that you have defined, you just can't simply give the authority and delegate it and forget about it. You have to keep measuring the progress once in a while, possibly monthly once. You should take a stock of what is happening so that you know whether it is going in track or is that going to be a delay. You will be able to judge that as well. Even though you have given the responsibility to the other person, the ownership still remains with you, with the delegator. That has to be thought in mind. And if it has to be handled in, I called it as an art in the very beginning for the same reason. So if everything goes right and it's all successful, give that credit to the team. Something goes wrong, you are to be blamed. Take the ownership, take the blame on yourself. That's a good style and that's a good art that helps you grow as a team as well. So keeping the customer in mind, measure the progress once in a while. It's not that you delegate and you forget about it, look at it towards the end, and then just struggle as to what to do and what not to do. So keep track of it. When you measure it, or when in a meeting, you will know. You will eventually know, even though the other person is doing, is it going in the right track, is something you will be able to judge. So that is something that you have to do so that you are able to successfully complete it.
Thanks, Raji. The next question we have is what in case delegation is not yielding result? What's the best way to deal and decide? Sashi, do you want to answer this one, please?
Sure, Danya. I think that's a most important question and also a basic question that we all should be thinking about when we think about delegation. While we could be intentional, while we could find the right person, while we could identify when to really delegate, while all of this could be going in the right way, you delegate and then still it may not work out. Like what Raji mentioned, while we could give or provide the autonomy, build the safety net, the accountability always lies with the delegator, the person who wants to delegate something to the other person. So in this case, when something goes wrong and it is not yielding the result, when something is being, some activity or a task is being delegated, first thing is to go back to looking at the effective way of delegating. There are certain guidelines, right? Did we talk about everything to be clear? Did we define the outcomes? Did we understand the KPIs? Did we put checking mechanisms in place? Also, from the person's side, does this person have the capability? Or did we have trust or confidence that this person will build it along the way? Is it happening? Is it not happening? And there might have been some areas or indicators where the person might have reached out for help. Was I able to provide that support? Or was I able to get somebody else? Was that even called out? Go a little deep into understanding why delegation did not work, why the outcome was not coming, why there was no result. Rather than looking at it as, this has failed, break it down to see where it went wrong. By doing that, the first time when you see the result is not out, maybe you can give some more time for the person to go and work on that particular area. If the delegator has not provided support, maybe try spending some time providing that support. If the skill was not built by the individual, probably there was a particular reason, address that. You can do this once. This directly correlates with how do you work when you are giving some room for a person to pick up something new. You give feedback. Hey, there is speed that is less, you're not bringing in the outcome. I would apply the same thing here. Go back to the basics of defining what we defined in the beginning of delegation. Go through each one of those to see where it went wrong. And also look at the stake. What is the impact it is creating? If it is really high, you cannot keep continuing to do it, but you can give one chance or a couple of chances to really address the issue or the blocker. And eventually, if it doesn't work out, then you have to explain it to the person as well, because the ownership, the accountability is still with the person who delegated. So have to take that if it failed, saying that, yes, due to these reasons it failed, and I take ownership of that. That is where it becomes very, very critical. It cannot be blamed on the person who was supposed to take over. Rather, the person who delegated has to take it and think about how to delegate it to a different person in case of the capability mismatch. In case of the support was not able to be provided on right time, maybe the delegator will end up picking it up and doing it. There are different ways you can address it, but just analyze it a little bit more before you jump into conclusion why it failed. Or do not blame it on the person who was supposed to take it over. Rather, break it down to see how could it be done effectively if I were to do it. That's what I would suggest doing it if delegation goes wrong or if it doesn't yield the result. Then
I really like the way you explained it, Shashi, how you break it down into, different steps and do like a small retro itself. I think it was like very methodical, response to that particular question. Moving on to the next question, is it okay to delegate work upwards, that is to people in a higher position? And what factors should one consider while doing this? I'll just leave it open here. Does anyone want to take it in the question? I think Prabhu wants to take this question.
Yep, sure. There's a questions in this, right? I mean, one is it okay to delegate upwards? Absolutely okay. I mean, and when it's needed, when it's required, and when it's possible, you should do that. I mean, it's not delegations only to the subordinates or the colleagues. It's delegation to the everyone in the team basically. So your supervisor also is part of the team. So of course you can do that. And what factors you want to consider? Okay. So as Raju was talking in the beginning, finding the right person to do the right job. I mean, if that task can be done only by your supervisor or your supervisor skills or the influence is required to finish that certain work, then obviously you should go and explain to him and why he has to do it. I mean, give the enough details so that he can delegate to him actually. It is not about just seeking help, telling that why he can do it, why you cannot do it also sometimes. It's not a seeking help. So you're telling only then he can do it because that requires some kind of approval, authority or power or influence, whatever it is. So you have to go and communicate to that so that you can delegate to that. With that details, you can go and delegate. The next point is you're too busy. You can't do it. I mean, there's a lot of things on your table and this little high priority thing and your teams is so occupied and you see some buffer or time with your supervisor or you can give it off to somebody else in the team. Yeah, go ahead and give it to him and give the reason, give it back to him. It's not about delegating, it's maybe giving back to him itself where you can't handle it because of the other constraints.
Thanks, Prabhu. I think that did answer the question.
Yeah, if I may add to what Prabhu said, I think this upward delegation can happen in a couple of instances as well, right? Like rightly put by Prabhu. It could be that this person had done it before, can done it with ease, done it very easily, or he or she is much more efficient in doing that. I have my plate full, and he or she is my team member as well. Could be my boss, but I can go and ask, hey, you know what? We all have all of these going on. Would like you to pick this up. It could be looked at as a request that we are asking for. We don't have bandwidth, and we know you can do it. You can pick it up. The second dimension to that is maybe a situation or a conflict that is happening at that point of time could be handled effectively much more smoother way by this person. Hence, I choose to delegate this. That is also another way to look at this. And I have done this in my personal experience when I know working with multiple different stakeholders. My boss or my superior has a better connect and a relationship with somebody could be resolved quickly than me building the relationship and doing that. I have gone ahead and asked them to kind of pick that up. That is another way to do that and another scenario where you may end up doing the delegation to the superior. Just wanted to add that.
Thanks, Shashi. The next question we have is, how can we delegate without micromanaging to juniors? Vijay, do you want to take this one?
Yes. Micromanagement is not a privilege a product manager enjoys, by the way, because nobody reports into you. So I think from that perspective, or I've done roles previously as an innovation champion, or there are people that have done agile coaches. In all these cases, nobody reports into you. Where does the question of micromanagement, if these guys are not even reporting into you, it's very difficult. You don't even have an authority to do that. Usually that is clubbed with each other, right? Or even assume that you have all the authority over the team members with which you have, to whom you have delegated a particular task. I think leading by influence, leading by inspiring, and leading by example is a proven way of getting the job done over a period of time than micromanaging. It's all research. It's all out there. It's very evident that leading by influence, even with the people that you have authority upon, that you have delegated to, is going to yield the results that you're looking for, right? So the mindset has to first set in, right? And we also understand that autonomy, mastery, purpose is what is going to today motivate a talented workforce. One, I need an autonomy, so don't micromanage. Second, I'm also keen to learn the art, right? So there is natural tendency for everybody to grow, and they want to learn the skill. So there is mastery and there is purpose. So all you can do as a delegator is, can you clarify the vision? If you're a product manager, it's about the product vision. If you're a engineering manager, it's about the technical architecture behind, or something, whatever. Clarity on the purpose or the vision of why you are delegating, or why something is expected to be done from the team. And believe in the team, right? So if that mindset is there, and everybody is here to learn, everybody is here to prove themselves, they will do their best to get the job done. If you can start believing in and only remove the difficulties in their way, or rather give an inspiration or a clarity on the vision or the direction ahead, I think it's very natural that you don't have to micromanage, but things will run on their own. So it's all there in the mindset. The moment you think that your own cause, and why do you want to micromanage? Because you want to make sure that the outcome is clear. So the moment that you start realizing that the outcome is much more of quality, when you start giving a little aside and then start inspiring them over a period of time, I think that's.
Thanks,
So I would
Vijay.
also add on to what Vijay has said. He has put it very rightly, the mindset. It's not just the mindset of the individual alone. I would say it is the company culture as well that plays a great role in these defining these things. So if the organization culture enables the vision of the organization, the vision of the management enables the open culture without any micromanagement, giving a reverse feedback as well. If somebody is doing micromanagement, there is an opportunity for the person to raise it openly to anyone in the higher level of the management. That is the culture. So that sort of a culture brings in, makes it very easier not to micromanage.
Thanks, Rajiv. So we have a last question here. We're almost close to time. Can you share some real-time experience where the delegation went wrong? How did you mitigate that situation? I'll just leave it open to the panel.
So I'll just answer it in few words from what I could think of. So I think we have discussed all these things. My real-time example, I have, because we believe in a person, and when we give that job to them, only if you don't, I mean, you just leave it without following it up or without tracking the progress, you're going to end in a bad shape. Once you know the progress, once you know the direction it is going along, I think it will go in a right way. So I have found that halfway through the person is not able to do it, went wrong with the delegation, where I will have to take back the work. And since I couldn't find a suitable candidate to delegate that job, I ended up completing it myself because I have to give it to the customer in time. If you're tracking the progress, it's easy for you to mitigate the earlier you find it is problematic. So that is something that I wanted to say. Anybody else can add their own views.
Yeah, I
Rashid,
can
you
add one more view to that. I agree with Raji. I think quite a few times I had to jump in because I know that there may be a time, the last responsible moment where you have to take a call and see if you have to jump in, right? You can't sit waiting for them to pick up and do it. Another thing that I have done sometimes, when I'm busy as well, and there is another person that this delegatee is comfortable. Because when we talk about the plan itself, we put forth, yeah, these are the areas where I may struggle and I may need some support. And we spoke about, this was a large engagement and we had a few people who were playing that sort of a program manager role. And when one person was struggling, we said, oh, okay, am I the only person who am aware of this, or is there anyone who is aware? Oh, I've been discussing with this person. Would you like to take help from me, or would you like to, oh, that person has been working with me already. Let me go talk to him. Are you okay if I take help from him? It became a very open discussion about, yeah, I need help. I'm struggling. It's not going to happen. Either you pick it up or I can take help from someone. So we all three sat together and spoke about it. It became easier that way. So I have faced that, and we have tried doing that, and it has worked well as well, because as long as there is a good relationship and trust between that person and another one who wants to help, that is a way you can let that happen as well. Still, you keep an eye on that. You may still have to jump in, but in this case, it did work. So helped bring trust between another person and this person while getting into a new challenge. So that's another way to handle it.
Thanks for your inputs, Shashi. Really, really well put. I think that brings us to the end of the panel discussion. I think we don't have any more questions. And we all heard the panel share their experience, and it was an excellent discussion point. As we wrap up the session, I want to reiterate that delegation is a powerful tool that we need to employ, because if we try to do everything ourselves, we just can't do it, right? And like Vijay mentioned during the session today, if we delegate tasks, we create followers. But if we delegate authority, we create leaders. So I think we should stop being the bottleneck, in all our roles, and start delegating more and believing in the people we actually work with. Because if we actually think about it for a moment, we are in this panel today, and almost anyone who is in a fairly senior position are where they are because at some point somebody trusted them and delegated some task to them, right? So they would have actually done it, learned it, and grown their way. And we should just pass on the baton and delegate more and let others grow as well. Just want to leave the thought with all of us and say, let's delegate and create more leaders like us. Thank you.
Thank you, ANI Chennai team, for arranging this particular panel discussion, and we thank Danya for moderating this particular panel discussion, and Rajlakshmi, Sasikala, Prabhu, and Vijay for being part of the panel.